Welcome to the All Tech Radio podcast on YouTube. This is a show where you learn about the news and technology related to working in the world of IT. No matter what your job is in IT, we cover all aspects of work, life balance, job duties, salary, and everything else related to computers and technology. I am your host, Professor Robert McMillen, and joining me as always is my co-host, IT consultant Scott Portinga. Welcome to the fifth YouTube podcast, Scott.
Well, good afternoon, Robert.
So glad to have you here, taking you away from your busy work schedule.
Little break in the day.
Yeah. But I also know that you could be called away at any time.
That's true. It happens. You know, that's the problem with being a small shop with a lot of clients. It's like you got to drop what you're doing and take care of them.
That's true. That's true. So we got a lot of great stuff on our show today. One of those is going to be about using artificial intelligence to help you get a job with your resume when it comes to keywords and stuff like that. So, I know you're happy in your job, Scott. So I don't think you'll be able to use it, but I'm sure a lot of people that are listening will find it.
That's true. Now, you mentioned it was white space. Are we hiding keywords in white text on the back of the resume like we used to do with web pages?
You're good. Yeah, you got it. All right. So let's see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to show this. So we're not going to show our beautiful faces just for a second here. Maybe you can explain the Maybelline effect afterwards too. All right. So here it is right here. This is from Washington Post. And the Washington Post is saying job applicants are battling AI resume filters with a hack. And so here's what they're doing is it's a 10-second resume hack. It's pretty quick. It helps you get past the first screening when an artificial intelligence bot or digital filter might scan resumes. So here's what happens is when you send in a resume where you don't know who they are, this is just something online, maybe through LinkedIn or from Indeed or something like that. You send in that resume and you don't know who sees it. Well, the first pass is going to be by a bot, all right? And look at that, I got a problem with the page. The first pass is going to be by a bot because they're looking for specific keywords. So what I did was, I like Bard. I don't know, what's your favorite AI, or do you not really care nowadays?
I don't really care all that much. I haven't really played with him as much as I probably should.
Oh, okay.
I've been busy doing this day job thing.
Yeah, if you're not doing programming, then it doesn't really help you. But so I used it for this. I like Bard better than ChatGPT. First off, the free ChatGPT is kind of limited to like 2019. It doesn't get any newer than that. If you want to do ChatGPT 4, you got to pay for it after the first couple of things that you type in to prompt it. At least it did for me. Some people are saying they get a lot more than that before you have to start paying for it. But for me, I got 2. Then it said sorry, but you don't get any more than 2 questions in there. So here's what I did: I typed in to bard.google.com, which you can sign up for free and use it as much as you want, as far as I can tell so far. It says, please provide the keywords I should add to my resume for this job offer. And then I went to linkedin.com and I typed in, I want to look for an IT job. And I just chose the first option. And then I copied that job, the job requirements. You don't need all the other stuff like salary and all that stuff, just the job requirements. And I pasted it into the Bard prompt. And so it's for a remote IT compliance auditor, full-time position, all this kind of stuff. And here's what it said. It said, sure, here's some keywords. Go ahead. So keywords you should add to your resume based on that information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that information right here. And then I'm going to go into Microsoft Word, and then I'm going to paste them in and show you what white spacing is. So I also used Bard to create a resume for me. I said, just create a random resume for anybody, based on having an IT job. So, this is really has very little thought put into it because I had Bard do it for me. So you can see Jane Doe, you can see the phone number, and you can see what the skills are and experience and stuff like that. So I'm going to go to the very bottom and I'm going to paste this in, and then I'm going to go and highlight all of this, and I'm going to take off the dots here. There we go. Get rid of that. And then I'm going to change it from red to white. So guess what? Now you can't see it anymore. However, the bots that look through this, they can see them. And so now I've just fulfilled all the requirements for the keywords that are needed for this. Because if I now the question is this ethical? Is this moral? And all that kind of stuff. I would counter that with, is it ethical and moral to have a bot look at my resume when I expected a person to look at it?
Yep.
You
expect it to be looked at as in a more holistic method rather than saying, are these words there?
Exactly. Now, the other thing you can do is you can take those keywords and you can just intersperse them. I mean, if you're worried about this, intersperse them throughout various different areas, like, in skills and things like that. In experience, you can put in these keywords interspersed, and then you'll still have a leg up, but you won't have to worry about, if you are causing any kind of moral, potential problem.
As long as the words are there, as long as the AI can read them, doesn't really matter where they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We used to do that extensively in websites, and hiding keywords for search criteria in the background, same color as the background, so that Google search would pick up the website for the topic that you wanted.
So this isn't something that's anything new. It's just new for resumes using AI, really.
Exactly. Yeah, I didn't know you could do that. Well, actually, the whole reason for doing it is probably just the AI doing the pre-screening.
Exactly. So then once you get past the first one, then you have a one-on-one with somebody, and then you can, then you'll find out whether or not you're a good fit or they're a good fit for you. I mean, a lot of times, they come in with a salary range, which in California they're required to put into the ad as of this year. And so a lot of other states are doing it as well, because they don't know if somebody from California is going to be seeing this ad, right? So they'll definitely have to have that in there. And unfortunately, when you get past all this stuff and you get to the offer stage, a lot of times they're offering a salary below what that range is. And whether or not it's illegal, I don't know, but it's definitely immoral on their part that they're doing that, because they just wasted a lot of your time.
And they're wasting their time, and it's like, why not be more forthright and get the slice of people you're looking for, rather than wasting everybody's time.
Exactly. I read an interesting article where this one guy was posting. Was what it was. He went on an interview with with some company, and one of the first questions they asked him is, "Why are you interested in working for such and such company?" And he said, "Well, I don't really know. The recruiter just kept bugging me until finally I made an appointment, and here we are." And so,
you wanted to talk? Let's talk.
Let's talk. And so they ended that interview fairly quickly, which he was fine with, because he really wasn't interested. He said, hopefully this will stop this guy from bugging me about it.
I've had recruiters bugging me before. It's like, it's really, don't waste your time.
Exactly. Yeah, I had a couple this week that were interested. Most of them are reaching out through LinkedIn to me. I don't know, where are you getting yours from?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn too? Okay. I heard that Indeed was, they'd give you that option to allow recruiters to contact you. So I think what we'll do is next time we'll come up another podcast. We'll come up with some good responses from recruiters where they're legitimate, and some where they are not. So that way you can tell the difference when you start getting offers in your inbox to interview for various different types of positions. Because, a lot of these are people from other countries. They're just looking for a commission, and other times they're just looking for personal information so they can steal your identity. I mean, there's lots of personal information that goes on these offers,
Yeah, and a lot of them may get paid by how many contacts they make. So they really don't care. Whether you say yes or no or anything, but if you respond, so I guess you could take that in another way. You could say, "I'm going to help this guy out. I'll respond. I have no interest, but it'll help him make money for his family."
There you go. I hadn't thought of it that way. That's funny. Tell us. Last week we talked about using, was it Zoom? With a Maybelline product, or Teams? I guess it was Teams. Yeah. So Teams was saying that Microsoft was saying, hey, you can get this Maybelline thing where it'll automatically add makeup for you, make your hair just right, all that kind of. So you tried this out. What happened?
I tried to find the settings, and I actually set up a meeting. It said go into filters, and you'll scroll down, you'll find the Maybelline thing. I didn't find it.
So you followed all the directions and they weren't there.
Yeah, it was not there. So before this, before we started this show, I went in and told it to do updates. So I'll check it later and see if there's anything new.
That is one of the problems with the software from Microsoft and other places. They make these announcements, but they do a rollout of the software. So even if you did the updates, it doesn't mean that you're going to see them, because Microsoft might decide that Scott's not going to get that update this week because we need to roll these out so we don't overwhelm all of our servers, and we may get tons of phone calls or emails because it doesn't work for some people, that kind of thing. So work out all the bugs and then make it.
I've got two Teams start buttons. I've got one for work or school account and another one for personal account. So it's like, it would, which one are they going to roll out first? You just have to wait.
Oh yeah, I think I mentioned before, but I did a video on how to tell the difference between the personal teams and the business teams, because the business teams won't take a personal email and the personal teams won't take a business email.
I know. Why don't they get those two things to talk so it'll just work?
So what I discovered was that it's the color of the team's icon when you go to click on it. One shows personal, one is the personal one in one color, and one is the business one in the other color. Yeah, pretty weird.
Wow.
Yep.
How subtle of them.
Let's see what else we got here. Stuff. What have you been up to this week? Did you get any interesting problems that showed up? Letting other sysadmins know the kinds of challenges that you have.
Well, I've been looking at, I'm setting up the Azure desktops, and I keep on running into an issue. I wanted to maybe run something by you offline, but there was an issue with, it seems to be the version of the Windows 10 image that I'm trying to apply to the Azure desktop.
Oh, okay.
I keep on running. I followed the directions, and boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Deploy, nothing.
Nothing. Wow, that's weird.
Not nothing, but it gives me an error saying, "Oh, sorry, we can't do this."
Now that could also be a temporary problem with Azure as well, where I'll try to duplicate it myself to see if I get the same problem, because some of their features sometimes go offline and it takes them a while to fix it, and their errors don't really explain what's happening.
Right.
But I'll be happy to take a look at that, see if I get the same results as you do, see if we can figure it out. I completed a course on Pen Test Plus. You know any people who do pen testing?
Well, I've done it in the past, haven't done any lately. Kaseya's trying to sell me a product that does pen testing.
Oh, it does it for you? Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know anybody that does it. I looked at the pricing too. It's for people that do a lot of it and can afford to pay, a couple $1,000s a month.
Wow.
So
well, Nessus is Tenable Nessus is probably the gold standard for pen testing, and I did some. I got to use that this week to do some tests. I also used some other programs like Zap and Kali Linux operating system and a bunch of different things. So that was fun. And I just found out today that my course on Cisco Next Generation Firewalls is going to be out on LinkedIn Learning sometime, I believe, next week. I got to play on that. I can't remember if I told you this, but I ordered the Cisco firewall ahead of time before I went to record the course, and it accidentally came with the ASA software on it, which is the old software. And I didn't have a way of converting it, so I had to go buy another firewall. To buy a second one. So that was me. I got an email from Synology this week. You've used Synology drives, right?
I do.
You do?
I have a couple out there.
So you've used them basically as an iSCSI for backup, or how do you use
Correct. Just as a backup, as NAS storage.
Oh, NAS storage. Okay, yeah. These things do a lot of different things. So they sent me an email and said, "Hey, if we send you some equipment, will you do a video on synthetic backups?" So synthetic backups are basically when you take a full backup and you take a whole bunch of incremental backups, and it creates one giant up-to-date restoration file that you can use in case you need to restore. So one of the problems with incremental backups are that if you do a full backup and then you do a backup one day after another, and then you go to do a restoration, you have to have all those other backups in place in order to do the restoration. And that may be difficult because maybe you've already overwritten some of these.
Yeah. So does this synthetic backup, is it constantly kind of molding itself so you're not going to be, if you wait a couple of weeks, all of a sudden you're out of luck.
Right. It creates an update. So basically, it creates two different files. One is it creates the full backup and incremental backup. Great. Then it creates this restore file where it's constantly updating every day from the previous incremental backup. So even if all of your previous incrementals are bad, it doesn't matter because the synthetic has been updated already, and you can do the restoration. At some point, it'll have to automatically overwrite the synthetic. If you're running out of space, but as long as you have enough space on these things. So I've never heard of a hard drive like a iSCSI/NAS unit or a SAN/NAS unit do this on its own. That's a new thing. I mean, unless they have some built-in backup software on them now. Is that what you found? Do they use the big?
Yeah,
or do you use like a third-party software on it?
The synthetic backup has always been based on the software. I've never seen a hard drive itself do it, but I'm sure it's something built into the Synology operating system.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. So I'm excited about getting that device and testing that out and seeing how it works. So
yeah, send it over to me after you're done.
I may not have as much use for it because I'm not doing the day-to-day work like you are. I'm just teaching, and so when I'm done with it. What else am I going to do with it, right?
Yeah, I could take it and throw it into a client situation and get real-world testing on it.
There you go. Get some money back on it. I like that.
There you go.
All right. So you ever play Call of Duty?
Not for years, but yes, it's fun.
So they keep updating it, of course, because it's a lot of money for Microsoft. So Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which came out in 2009. I mean, this is an old version of Call of Duty because 2009 is like the Dark Ages, right?
It's a while ago.
So. What happened was that they had to shut down the servers running. I'm surprised they're even, who's still playing this thing? But they had to shut down the servers because hackers got into it. That's what happens when you keep a program around for so long. You stop updating it.
Yep.
Then
people start poking at it.
Yeah, they got into the lobbies. They got into the games. I don't know what their goal was. Was it to steal information or infect other players? But apparently it got so bad that they completely shut it down. Modern Warfare 3 logo was leaked on a Monster Energy box and in development at Sledgehammer Games, and fans are speculating the obscured face behind Captain Price on the box is Vladimir Makarov, one of the main enemies from the original Modern Warfare 3. So those hackers, I tell you. This is from GameSpot.com.
Well, they just wanted to make headlines, and they did.
They did. It worked. I was thinking about this the other day, this whole generation thing. And when we were kids, basically a generation was 40 years, right? You had all these different generations, and they always lasted 40 years before the next generation. And I think it's because, people lived, there was a time when people lived about 40 years. So, in general, that's what you think of a generation. Although prior to the 1800s, I think people lived to be about 25 or 30. But you would have lived at least 2 lifetimes by now, Scott.
Exactly.
But
couple generations.
And here you are still working. You're not even retired. I mean, that says a lot. You must have had clean living, man. So good job. So now, then they started cutting it down to 20 years. And when you start thinking about the advancements in medicine and technology from 1600 to 1700, it wasn't very much, right?
Nope.
1700 to 1800, I think they finally, towards the end of the 1700s, they discovered electricity. Thanks, Ben Franklin was probably somebody else who actually did it. And then then people start getting electricity in their homes in the 1900s. Okay, so it's about 100 years between any kind of changes. Now things are moving so quickly. They dropped it to 20 years. For generations, and then they started going into what they're calling micro generations. You've got 5 years now, 10 years now. They're naming generations based on a very short amount of time. And I started thinking about why this is, and I think it has to do with the difference in technology and how it has affected the generation themselves. So, for instance, prior to this year, you and I mean, the average person did not have access to artificial intelligence. So whoever comes starting this year moving forward, they're going to have something that none of us had, not any previous generation ever. So that's going to completely affect, whether negatively or positively, the next generation. And 5 years from now, if you look at 5 years in technology, 5 years has been a long time. We used to use SSD drives. That was a big thing. And then we started using NVMe drives, which are much faster, more stable, and they're tinier and, all that kind of stuff. And it made the laptop experience much better. Started moving us away from tablets and back to computers again. So all these different changes have accelerated what we think of as a generation. And I just thought that was, kind of interesting, that we're seeing that. Now, artificial intelligence, the average person out there may not have played with it, may not know anything about it, or not much about it, but it is causing a cataclysmic change in every field out there. Even if you don't work in IT, it's changing the way we manufacture things, the way we grow things, the way the clients or companies respond to clients. So every single thing is being changed, and you don't know it yet. But it's going to cause industries to rise, and it's going to cause industries to fall. It's going to be a giant shift. And 5 years from now, when we have the next micro generation, they will start to see that themselves as well. And if we're still around in 5 years, hopefully we'll still be around, right, Scott?
Oh, it should be.
You never know.
That's true.
Yeah. So, the change is coming. And like I said, I'm not saying it's a bad change. It's a change. And you should be aware of it. You remember the 1990s? You think, wow, that was a really long time ago. Well, apparently, if you were one of the lucky ones to have purchased or received Apple sneakers, these are basically cheap
Apple sneakers.
Probably look like $25 sneakers. Here, let me put this up here. Here it is right here. So it's Apple branded sneakers, probably given away from some sort of a show or something like that. Where anybody who showed up would get one of these things. They're now going for $50,000.
So if you receive them and were smart enough to put them in a Ziploc bag and put them away and don't touch them,
right?
Then
yeah, there you go. Then you just earned $50,000. I didn't really have anything like that. I don't know, where you would get them other than, like I said, some giveaway or something like that. They're doing that, but $50,000.
I got my first certification, Microsoft MCSE in '92.
Wow.
So
that's way earlier than mine. My first one wasn't until like '99. Jeez. That's impressive. What version was that on?
3-point workstation, or not workstation, a server 3.0.
I didn't know they had one back then. I thought they started 3.5. I had no idea. Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, mine was on 4.
I'll check the dates. I don't know. I'm getting old. I forget things.
Well, what's funny is that, at the beginning of the decade, they were on 3. At the end of the decade, they're on 4. But then when you get into the 2010s, you got 2012, 2016, 2019, Things are moving much faster. It's not just our imagination.
Well, we've got a big update deadline coming in October for Server 2012.
Oh, are they finally going to move away from that for support?
It's going to sunset. Yep. No more support after October. So I've got a lot of medical clients that
I thought that they had done that already, but I guess not. Huh.
Nope.
And then Windows 10, they were talking, 2025?
Last I heard, yeah.
Yeah, until they always extend it, but yeah.
Yeah, they will, because a lot of people will complain. But a lot of people have asked me about Windows 11. It's like, well, it's okay. I mean, it's not a gigantic leap from Windows 10.
Yeah.
It's not that big a deal. I mean, if you want to do it, great. But if you don't want to do it, that's fine too.
Yeah, it's really not. I mean, there's nothing that you can do in Windows 11 that you couldn't do in Windows 10. I mean, there's a lot of things in 10 that you couldn't do in 8. That was, 8 to 10 was a big jump. It was such a big jump. They missed 9. They just, they completely forgot 9. I think the iPhone did the same thing. But but 10 to 11, I mean, it's just an interface change for the most part. I mean, it has a few more security features, but most people don't know them.
Right. Yeah. Once you learn some of the bells and whistles, I think it is better than Windows 10, but not so much better that I would say, yes, you need to move to it, especially for a regular user. Yeah. Don't worry.
Well, there's a new technology or a technology we've been talking about for years that we've been trying to get to happen, and that is when you send electricity over the current types of lines. You know, those really big, tall towers that they send electricity to from, the station off to the people's homes and stuff. The problem is you lose electricity. It sort of evaporates into the air around it.
Probably gets dissipated a lot by heat.
Yeah, by heat. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, that's caused a lot of forest fires as well.
Yep.
So that's not great. But the goal has always been to create a material, a superconducting material that can be run at room temperature. Now, that's been the problem. Is if any superconducting material, which they invented back in the 80s, I think it's been around a long time, right?
For a long time. Yep.
Yeah. The problem is the only way to make it work was you had to be at sub-zero temperatures.
12 degrees Kelvin.
Yeah. And little by little, they've created higher and higher temperatures over time. And now South Korea is saying they did it. The elusive, and this is according to phys.org, that they have come up with a room temperature ambient pressure superconducting material. Whoa!
Wow.
That could be huge. It conducts electricity without resistance. So it will give you 100% of whatever electricity you put on, you send across the line, it will show up at the other end.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
I wonder what it's going to cost, though. But they mix.
If you have to ask, you can't.
Yeah, that's right. But I would assume that it would pay for itself fairly quickly, though.
Oh, you would think so, with all the loss that they have over the lines.
Yeah.
Long distance lines. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's good for the world too. It's good for the Earth. So to be able to do it. So they contained. This is interesting. They created a material they call LK-99, and it's made from sulfur. Sulfur, oh man, that's going to be a good smell.
We got that.
Yeah. Sulfur and oxygen, mixing sulfur and oxygen together. I never would have thought of putting this together. And phosphorus. And then you heat it to really high temperatures for several hours. You basically cook it. And then it creates this dark gray superconductive material. So maybe they can just apply it to the lines that are already there rather than having to create lines out of it. I don't know.
That's not a bad idea. They have the physical infrastructure. If they can just apply that and use it as the core for the material, that'd be excellent.
Yeah. And they provided a video of the material partially levitating. So that's how you know you've got superconductive material, right? Is you can get it to levitate, and you'll only be able to do that at sub-zero temperatures with previous stuff. But at ambient temperatures, they could get this material to levitate. That is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they said they could have gotten better, could have got higher levitation if they had cleared out more of the impurities. I guess the way they were doing it, it just wasn't like a sterile lab like they would do places like Intel and stuff like that. So they couldn't get all the impurities out. But once they figure out how to do that, it'll be even better.
Well, see if they can get you to send some samples.
Yeah.
That would be,
what would we do with it? It's the sticky stuff. I don't know what to do with it. But yeah, that would be great. So yeah, very, very interesting stuff. I mean, you could put this stuff in computers. You could put it in any electronics, and it will lower the amount of heat. You know how hot some of our phones get sometimes. So I know that a lot of that comes from the batteries, which they're working on a better battery. But it also comes from the electronics as well. It'll make batteries last much longer, because you won't lose the electricity when it passes from the battery into the components. So, I mean, overall, this is an amazing thing. Maybe it'll make our phones levitate too. That would be cool. So, like, where's my phone? There it is. I got it.
Quick.
That would be neat. Let's see what else is going on here. NASA has just come out with an on-demand streaming service. So if you are excited about watching, what's going on in NASA. Now, I always thought that this was free. As I've gone to nasa.gov to see various different, types of space launches and, all that kind of stuff.
There's a NASA channel. You can go on your cable provider.
So now they're coming out with a streaming service. I don't see what it's going to cost, but let me see if I can see what there's. Oh, but it's available. It's going to be available for phones now, which is good. So you can download the NASA app to be one of the first to get NASA Plus when it drops. I hate it when they say when it drops. We don't drop things, do we?
At NASA, you don't want stuff to drop out.
No, apparently not. But NASA also has some other news today, and it didn't cost me anything to find it. In 3 years, less than 3 years, NASA could be testing a nuclear rocket in space.
Ooh.
We've been waiting for a nuclear rocket for a long time. I mean, the closest I think we've come to it is they put a nuclear-powered rover on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, it was always solar panels, to keep the battery charged.
Yeah.
But then they put a nuclear powered, one, which is still running, many years later. It should, it'll probably cause a problem for the people who actually go to live there someday.
There's been a few things that they sent to Mars that have lasted way longer than their planned lifetime.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So less than 3 years, the Space Agency and Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA. So DARPA helped create the internet for those of you who, are part of one of those different micro generations than us. And they gave the contract not to SpaceX, not to Elon Crazy Musk of the X.com website, or actually, I don't even know.
That was probably a wise move.
Well, it used to be Twitter. They didn't give it to him. They gave it to Lockheed Martin. Those guys are pretty smart guys. People.
They've got a history with this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So they're going to build the nuclear fission reactor. So that's going to split apart atoms, just like a regular nuclear bomb would. So as opposed to a nuclear fusion reactor. We're still trying to work that out. I mean, there are people that say they've got the nuclear fusion reactor to work right, which doesn't produce any radioactivity, but,
They've never been able to prove it in public.
Yeah. What's interesting is the cost of this thing. How many billions do you think this is going to cost, Scott?
Oh, since you mention it, I assume it's a large number.
Yeah.
25 billion?
Strangely enough, 499 million. Not a half
that's
a billion.
A bargain.
Yeah.
That's a bargain.
Yeah. Now, that's just for the demonstration model.
Oh, okay. You want a functional model.
You want the deluxe version. That's going to be in billions. So they're going to cut the amount of time. Right now, whenever we send anything to Mars, we have to time it just right for when it's going to be slingshot.
Planets rotating and
Yeah. And it takes about 9 months? Does that sound right?
8 or 9 months, yep.
Yeah. They're going to cut this down to 3 to 4 months.
Huh.
That's impressive. So
that's a big change.
3 to 4 months. Every 26 months, Mars and Earth are close enough for a shorter journey. So I guess you could do it when it's farther apart. It would just probably take the 8 or 9 months at that point. But then, you have to accelerate the first half of the journey and then slow it down again. This is from the New York Times, by the way. Nuclear energy would make this go much faster. And we know that it seems to work in space because, it's we've been running tests and things like that with nuclear devices out in space, but nothing like this. I mean, this is going to be what is it here? 4,400 degree test Fahrenheit. So that's pretty. I mean, I think the surface of the sun is like 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that. So I think it's really difficult to actually measure the sun in Fahrenheit. I think they would prefer to do it in Kelvin degrees, but
I've fired my my laser thermometer to the sun. And it just doesn't seem to get a good
didn't cause any problems, huh?
5,772 Kelvin.
Wow. Okay. So, when in photography, we would measure Kelvin as color, so like the sun at high noon is 5,000 degrees Kelvin. So, when you look at, yourself under a traditional light bulb, you're running around 3,300 degrees Kelvin. So it's not actually 3,300 degrees Fahrenheit or anything like that. It's just the color of light. And so when you get something too hot or too cold, you can no longer measure it in traditional Fahrenheit or Celsius or anything like that. You have to measure it by color. And so that's why you end up with these Kelvin degrees.
Well, they say the core is 27 million degrees Fahrenheit, but the surface is only about 10,000 degrees
Yeah, that's
Fahrenheit.
Right. That's what I thought. It was like 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit, yeah. But that's just a guess. I mean, all they can really do is measure the color and convert that into Fahrenheit.
Right.
From the New York Post. You might like this one. New York Post is usually like yellow journalism, as they used to call it.
I think the technical term for it is it's a rag.
It's a rag. There you go. Yes. Well, they came out with an interesting article today, which if you own an iPhone, you will feel better about this because Apple came out with this new feature in the newer iPhones that allow you to make a phone call even if you're not near a cell tower, because it will connect with an emergency call to a satellite. So it turns your phone into a satellite phone. So a man who drove off a 400-foot cliff. All right.
And lived to tell about it.
How does somebody drive off a 400-foot cliff? Were you trying to pass somebody?
Oops.
Or was there a cow in the way? I mean, how do you end up in Los Angeles? How do you, were you drinking? What were you doing that made you fall off a 400-foot cliff? But he was saved after his iPhone alerted the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department about the crash. So he had that feature that you can turn on to let you know that you've been in a crash, which of course has been causing all kinds of false positives with people lately. Now your phone doesn't have that because you have the iPhone, 3 or 2, is it? I forget.
2.5.
2.5. So yours probably doesn't have that.
No.
You might want to upgrade to this, Scott, because if you are ever driving around on cliffs drunk, not saying that this guy was, but if you ever want to do that, then it'd be nice if someone came and rescued you.
Yeah, that's the ultimate drop alert.
At no charge.
His phone just dropped 400 feet.
Yeah. The man who is not publicly identified, good thing, he's probably got legal things against him coming up, as my guess.
Oh yeah.
Was found less than 20 minutes later. Wow, they got him quick. I mean, that sounds like the middle of nowhere, but they got him quick. Where he was ejected from his car. So I guess when he flew down this ravine or the cliff, he somehow got ejected from the car as well. I don't know how that happened, but now of course if he was not wearing a seatbelt and he was in a convertible, that makes a lot of sense.
And driving
now.
drunk.
And drunk, right? So yeah, he was bleeding from his head and gosh, how does a guy live through that? That is amazing. I would want to know what kind of car he was driving more than I would want to know about the phone, because anybody who survives that fall, I mean, you got to give credit to the car manufacturer on that.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure the manufacturer is going to look for him and try to do an ad based on him.
As long as he's not in jail for being drunk.
Exactly. Got to make sure to clean him up first.
That's right. A lot of over the years, a lot of people that we've done work for have gotten hacked, and it's not
no connection.
Yeah, it's not the
connection.
people that we have been doing work for. It's the people who call us after it happens.
Yep.
Like I had a call a couple of years ago, and I had already switched over to teaching, and they were desperate. They said, we got hacked, all our data is encrypted and blah, 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 blah. So I gave them 2 or 3 days of my time and helped them get back, on their feet, all that kind of stuff. But Oregon came out with this law. I'm not sure about in other states or in other countries, but in our state, we have this law where if you have any client data that has been compromised, and that's kind of a wide open field of what's considered compromised. But typically, like you leave a laptop in your car, it gets stolen, and there's client data on it, or you get hacked and somebody steals client data off of that, or maybe even holds it for ransom. That you have to tell the people who have been compromised, what exactly happened. But now the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, new nationwide rule, Scott, new rule. Now, this was not something that was brought up by Congress, so I'm assuming this could probably be challenged. But the new rule requires publicly traded companies. We're not one of those publicly traded companies to disclose cyber attacks within 4 business days after they've been made aware of the incident.
Well, I know there's been a lot of hacks out there that nobody ever hears of. Have you ever searched your email address on the dark web?
I have, yeah. It's definitely been used for nefarious purposes. Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of stuff that's gotten hacked, and you never heard a word.
Yeah, and I'm also on several lists of alert websites, and even against my better judgment, because I think it's kind of been a waste of money, is I joined that Norton product. I forget what it is, but it's like an insurance kind of a thing where if anything happens, they'll give you $1 million to help clear your name and all that kind of stuff. It's about $130 a year. And every once in a while, they'll send me an email saying, "Hey, we found your email address on the dark web."
Yeah, no kidding.
And so have you seen yours on there too?
Yeah, I've done some searches, and it's like, the password for that account, I changed that months ago.
Right, yeah, you're in good shape. So.
There's nothing there that's really relevant. They're saying, "Oh, we got your password." Yeah, but it's a password from 5 years ago.
Yeah. I even got some emails for a while that said, I hacked into your computer and I saw what you've been doing on your webcam. And if you don't send me $500, I'm going to share it to all of your Facebook friends.
I don't have a webcam.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the real answer would be, I don't care. I wasn't doing anything.
Exactly.
So now I know, Scott. No, I'm just kidding. So anyway, 4 days after you've been found out, that you've got to, let people know that you've been hacked, but only for publicly traded websites. So I think I told you this story before. You were in the office at the time when we had a client who owned an accounting business, and they had a laptop stolen, and they thought the data was encrypted, so they would not have to tell their clients because they were aware of the Oregon law. And so he gave us another laptop and said, "Here, check to see if this is encrypted." And so we took the hard drive out of the laptop, plugged it into another computer, and all the data was right there. It was not encrypted. Yeah. So they fired their IT guy.
Yep.
And they brought us in to help out a little bit. But the damage was done at that point, and that company had to sell a year later for a fraction of their original value after just losing one laptop and having to notify all their clients that all their data was compromised.
Yep.
So, yeah, I remember that day very well. I think you were there that day. Were you aware of that one?
I remember something.
About that, yeah. So, yeah, that was some pretty crazy stuff. Well, anything else on your mind this week, Scott, that's new and exciting?
Nothing that new and exciting. No, just dealing with some new phone systems at a client location, and
yeah, isn't that funny that we have to, that IT people have to now take care of phone systems? There was always a separate person.
Yeah, but now they're you get a lot of those companies that want to do what we do.
Yeah,
but can't.
Yeah,
and they try, but yeah, phones are they're VoIP phones. They're running over the network.
They're network. They're running over the same network as the computers now, right?
Right. So either you have a different subnet, or maybe even the same subnet in small locations. So yeah, they need your help. It's not before you used to say, install the phones, go do what you want to do.
I would be happy if they would just have us network them, but let the phone guys do the switch part. But now that many companies are going with Teams phones, Zoom phones, the switches are at Microsoft. The switches are at these different places, and we're really the only ones who could figure out how to use them. So the phone guys are like, well, I think I'm going to change businesses now.
Yeah, I've been working with a lot of different systems. Jive, which got bought by LogMeIn.
Oh, did it? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So in that case, we've got a website that we go to for their switching infrastructure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And really, properly set up, and good phone systems with good bandwidth, they're really cool. You can do a lot with them.
The biggest problem I had with the phone systems was that you only actually needed to configure about 10 settings. but they had about 10,000 different boxes to fill out. So, and you had to realize which ones meant something, which ones didn't. Has that gotten better?
No, but I'm actually making use of a lot more of those settings.
Oh, are you? You're actually using more than just the 10 boxes. Oh, okay.
In the Jive system, you've got this big flow chart.
Okay.
A call comes in. Is it a holiday or not a holiday? If it's not a holiday, you go here. Okay. Is it this or that? And push 1, push 2, push 3. Should it be forwarded to this office because this other office is closed today? And is it a holiday? Then it goes down here.
Oh, okay. All right. So they still have that kind of nightmarish thing, but you're figuring it out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had a call from a client that said, could you put all of our offices on holiday, on the holiday schedule?
Right.
Rather than just, get into the website and go in and switch, make a few switches.
There you go. Well, it's been another fun and exciting Altec radio show, Scott, and we'll meet again next week and have a new show for you. If any of you have any questions, feel free to just put them in the comment section, and we will be happy to answer them in the next show. So have a good week.